The former Mexican national team manager, Diego Coca, has also had some very interesting things to say about Mexican players. This was from an interview with David Faitelson, if memory serves. Quote, the players on the Mexican national team he's talking about here do not like to work a lot. It's okay. You complained that you worked a lot. Yes, you will work a lot with me. Do you want to be with me? I will make you win, but you will be working a lot. All right, so that was from Diego Coca. And this is from Santiago Jimenez. Now, worth noting here, this is not from after the defeat against the United States. It's actually from before, but still holds some value. Quote, here in the Netherlands, being professional is normal. Everyone is professional here. In Mexico, there are few professionals, and those are the players that make the difference. Here, it's not enough to be professional. You need to be professional and much more. All right, Herc, what do we make of these comments from both Santi and Diego Coca?
All right, I think we need to separate them, if I'm being honest, because one is the Mexican national team coach talking about his pool of players on the Mexican national team, and the other one is Santi Jimenez talking about Liga MX, which doesn't just encompass the Mexican player, but the players within Liga MX, and there are foreign players as well. So we need to separate the two. But I know where we're going with this, and roughly it's the Mexican mentality. And you can take shots at the Mexican players' mentality, and I don't like generalizing, but the reality is, tienen una mala fama. They've got a bit of a reputation, a bad reputation about them. And reputations or stereotypes in this game, they seem to matter to the powers that be. The reputation of American player back in the day was that maybe not as technically sound or tactically inept, but was very good in mentality, was a good athlete, those type of things. The reputation of a Mexican player abroad may have been maybe more technically sound and tactically, you know, had depth to him, but the mentality was lacking. Maybe wasn't a great athlete, et cetera, et cetera. I think what we're seeing now is the Mexican national team ex-coach who's clearly still hurt by the way he left and taking shots. And maybe some of those are warranted. Maybe some of those guys that he had didn't want to work, didn't want to train, didn't want to do things his way. And that's probably a reality because everything that we've heard, the reports were, they're not happy with the hotel. They're not happy with the training sessions. They're not happy with the logistical routes of the hotel to the training sessions. They're not happy with the meds, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe there's some truth there. But this whole generalizing of the Mexican players' mentality, I'm not buying today. I would have bought it Mexican player of old, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I buy today. I think these guys want to win just as bad. They just don't have the resources or at the moment right now the level.
You know, Herc, when I would have bought it from Diego Coca, if he'd have said it when he was actually in charge of the national team, people got to come out and say this important stuff when it matters, not in hindsight. Because then, Herc, it kind of looks like sour grapes. And I would actually say that about both of these comments. I think from the Coca side, you understand why they're sour grapes.
Okay.
From the Santiago Jimenez side, hear me out here.
Okay.
This is a guy who I think is looking at all that he does in Europe and is saying, my work in Europe is not being valued the way it should compared to the work that other guys are doing in Liga MX. So when I say that Liga MX and Mexican soccer is lacking professionalism, really what I'm doing is kind of throwing shade at guys whose achievements they're getting in Liga MX, and it's boosting him up a little bit. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into Santi's comments there, but I think there's a little bit of sour grapes here from both. Now, the one thing that you pointed out is to differentiate these two comments, right? And make Santi's more about Liga MX. And it's something that we continue to hear about Liga MX players, right? There's a relaxed nature to the game in Mexico that is having an impact on the national team, especially in this era, Herc, when there are so many guys from Liga MX in the national team. And the most important thing, I think, here is to ask the question, why? Why is Liga MX so relaxed, and has it always been that way? And the truth is, Herc, at least based on international play, I don't think it's always been that way. There were times when the Mexican national team was majority Liga MX, and they were much better and much more competitive internationally. So what has changed, Herc, in Liga MX in the last 4 years since this dramatic decline in the Mexican national team? What has changed?
What has changed?
What has changed?
What is it? I mean, what are you going to
tell me? What changed in April of 2020?
Are you going to tell me it's some?
No, I'm going to tell you it's promotion and relegation. Promotion and relegation left Liga MX, and I think it left Liga MX much less competitive than it was before. And we've heard it from all sorts of players. And I know Andres Guardado did an interview, a week ago, 2 weeks ago with Faitelson that created a lot of headlines. One thing nobody wrote about was what Guardado said about promotion and relegation, which is that the loss of it was one of the great problems in Mexican soccer today. I'm telling you, Liga MX is not as competitive internally as it used to be. And because there's not Mexicans in Europe, it's having a major impact on the, I think you could say, reading this graphic here, the commitment and professionalism of that player when it comes to the national team.
I would also say not just commitment, professionalism, but opportunity. If you have opportunity to ascend to first division, there are other players who get an opportunity of first division status and then will work harder to keep that opportunity of first division status. You don't see that anymore. You see Liga de Expansión, it's a bona fide, glorified reserve league where it doesn't matter how you do. You're just trying to market the team in that little small market to try to sell us whatever you want to sell. But there is no, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There is nothing to work for. So I agree. And if I could add really quickly to what you said about Santi Jimenez, this is neither here nor there, but his father came out in an interview with TUDN and actually said basically the same thing that you were saying right now. If it's so easy, why don't more Mexican players go to Holland and score that many goals? Why don't more players go abroad and score that many goals? I'm not saying Santi's wrong, because you're going to see more professional type players at the highest of levels. But generalizing isn't something I like to do. Yeah. And his time in Cruz Azul, I'm sure he saw his fair amount of mediocrity.
Yeah, I was about to say, producer Beto just reminded us, he did play at Cruz Azul, so the professionalism, commitment, you can see why he might have some questions.
He was
based on his
champion
time
there, though.
In Liga MX, that is true, a historic champion as well with La Máquina.